Alright, let's make sure. Okay, are we running? Yes, we're running. Pinned comment is up. Let's make sure stream is up. Stream up or not? Can't tell. Does the stream not have any volume? Uh-oh, stream. Alright, what is going on here? Alright, looks like everything is up and running. For a second, I thought my mic wasn't working. Not new game. Continue. Although, is the capture card not working? Oh, no, it is. It is. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream with Tea and Toast with Ghost. I am your host, Ghost. Welcome back. Okay, so let's return to Defiant Calder. Double jump. Talk to him.
So, did you and the Wildcat give Lictor a good mauling?
Maybe not mauled, but wounded, certainly. We also discovered Lictor is using Iridium to play with dangerous energies.
Sounds like the Lictor I know. Schemes upon schemes. How can I help?
We believe he has captured Amara's friend. He called her his test subject. No one knows these mountains like you. Where could he be hiding her?
Lictor does his most heinous work in the shadows, and his darkest deeds take place at what he calls the Black Site, west of the Order security checkpoint.
A black site?
If he's hiding anything, that's where it would be.
On it. Amara, Calder has a tip for us. Sending you a location.
Perfect. I'll meet you there.
Okay. So let's do some faction missions real quick. Yeah, let's start with this one. But anyway, everybody, I do have a topic I'd like to bring up today, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna get me some hate. But I wanted to, but considering how the new Iliad movie looks, for those of you who don't know, Iliad is the Greek word for the Odyssey story. Now, I've already seen who they're casting in a lot of different... I mean, they have Helen of Troy as a black woman, when in the literal text of the Odyssey, she was a fair-scared... not fair-scared. That would be funny, but no. Well, no, not was. She is a... Helen of Troy is a fair-skinned woman with incredibly bright hair, which normally means blonde to red in color.
You are the human version of the white placards under art.
Or it was shiny, something like that. Snacky snack my butt. But Helen of Troy was described as very different, and she was not black in any measure. Now, I can hear some people saying, well, Ghost, you're a bigot. Okay, let me make this very clear. A bigot would say a black woman cannot act. I've seen plenty of black women who can act. I mean, the woman, I don't remember her name. Oh, I don't remember her name. But she was clearly, it was the Predators 2, it was the second Predators movie that existed in the Predators franchise. What the?
I have a photographic memory and common sense.
No! Alan's art is derivative and puerile! Those who help that hack artist must in turn be hacked apart!
Fair, but foolish.
And there was a woman in the movie who wasn't the main lead, but it was clearly obvious that she had at least a black father, white mother, or vice versa. You know, black mother, white father. And, you know, she had the attitude of a New York City, of a hard-pressed New York City cop. And personally, she nailed that. So, I'm not a bigot in this. So, I am nothing like people who would sit there and say, oh, you don't believe a black woman should do this role. You didn't hear me complain about. The only complaint I had about the live action Little Mermaid movie was not that the character was black. My question was what depth was Atlantis at? Because if Atlantis was at a shallow enough depth, an incredibly dark skin tone because of how light goes through water would make sense. I mean, there's a reason why you put sunscreen on before you get in a pool. And that's not because of anything. It's how light reflects in the water. So let me make that very clear. I had no problem with a woman who was African in heritage playing Princess Ariel in the live action Little. Yes, she can. Now, what was I talking about before I was interrupted? Is my mic not working?
Over here, we have a demon to hunt. Well, I say we. More you.
That piece of our sculpture represents longing. That piece represents lust.
So many darn problems today, folks. But anyway, you know, my issue wasn't that the actress was black. I cared more about the fact that she had to be able to sing. And I mean, as long as you fit the role, I don't really care what skin tone you are. I have a really big problem with the force diversity. Like, I mean, just as an example, let's say Disney decided to make a movie about Gandhi. You wouldn't hear me give a lick if they found if Gandhi's, you know, his great-great-grandson played him. You wouldn't hear, you know, if his great-great-grandson was an actor in Hollywood or Bollywood, whichever. You wouldn't hear me complain. If they had some white dude playing it, I'd be like, you know, did in India. Because there were some of the things that the British did that were good, and there are other things that the British did that were bad. They did both. But you have to remember here that you're not gonna, some white British man playing Gandhi. It's like, wow, could you not get any further away from what this person actually looked like? But as someone who enjoys literature and likes continuity, very much first off here, you know, a black woman playing Helen of Troy. I mean, I just can't see how that would fit in. I just don't see how this works, to be bluntly honest with you. I mean, I couldn't even think of a really good way to make it work, to be bluntly honest with everybody. Because you have to remember that the Iliad is Homer's epic. And, it was written no. They didn't even know about the African tribes in sub-Saharan Africa because the Greeks never knew about that. Now, the Romans did. That's true. Romans did actually know about the dark-skinned people in sub-Saharan Africa. That's true. But to my knowledge, the Greeks didn't know about that. Okay, can you guys, if you can hear me, I'm still on. Just a minor technical issue just happened. I apologize. But, I just don't see how it fits the role. So, I mean, if they did a movie about the Romans' war with Hannibal, I could actually see them having a full battalion. I could see that one, folks. I could see it really easily. It would fit. But a black woman playing Helen of Troy, I mean, unless they really went out of their way to make her look like Helen of Troy, bleached her hair blonde, really gave her some, like, oh, what is it? See, they bleached her hair, and I wouldn't say, no, bleaching her skin's too far. But, you know, making her skin and stuff as smooth and clean as possible.
Modern. Inquisitive. Perfect.
You know, it wouldn't be perfect. You know, I've seen some of Ezra Miller's work. I am severely not impressed at all. In fact, I'm horrified that this person is portraying one of the greatest Greek heroes. Okay, let's put that one away. I like that one, but put that away. It's an order. I don't like that. Okay, we're good there. Huh? Alright, let's sell the chair.
I will sell it.
And so,
What the heck happened? Hold on, folks. I need a minute here.
Order things they can take me? Well, they got another thing coming.
Alright. Hopefully that should solve that situation. I apologize for the technical difficulties. It's the other people here who are not cooperating, folks. I do apologize. But as I was saying, you know, I don't think, you know, I do not think it is appropriate to bleach a black woman's hair unless that's what she actually likes to look like. Let's put that caveat in there. If that's what she wants to look like, then good for her. But I don't think it's appropriate to make a black woman look like that. I don't think it's appropriate unless she wants to.
We have a demon to hunt. Well, I say we, more you.
And now, as for Ezra Miller, you know, I am I don't even dare watch them. All of the review because let's see, according to every critic I've ever heard of Ezra Miller, you know, it's not even the fact that Ezra Miller is a transgendered person, or however you want to say that. It's the fact that Ezra Miller is a crappy actor, and that's one of the biggest complaints. Not to mention the fact that, according to a couple of Hollywood insiders, he's an absolute nightmare to work with. So, you know, I don't know what Christian Nolan was thinking when he did that. Although, if I actually was a betting man, I would say that he wasn't thinking it was Hollywood playing its damn games.
That's for my face, did you?
So, you know, people can sit there and hate on me all they want, but I just don't think it's appropriate to put a black woman in a role that I don't think she wants either. Because from what I understand, most black actors don't like white roles, as you could describe it, to be bluntly honest. They want roles that make them look, well, not make them look, but are more black inspired, black themed, I guess you could say, like the Black Panther movie as an example here. And I think that is more appropriate to have a nearly all black casting there, like they did with the first and second Black Panther, because Wakanda as a country in Marvel comic books is a hidden African country of advanced technology and, you know, the use of vibranium. So an entire black cast outside of certain things outside of Wakanda, you know, you're not gonna hear me gripe about the casting. You might hear me gripe about the acting. You might hear me gripe about other things that either A, I didn't like, or B, I didn't approve of for a Marvel movie. You know, you're not gonna hear me scream racism about Black Panther. Not gonna do it. It's not worth it. So, you know, I just don't think it's appropriate. And there's also the fact that no one talks about that there's a distinct possibility that black actors are forced into these roles that they may not want. Now, I say they might be forced. I don't know if that's true or not. And I could be wrong about that, not gonna lie.
So, the pit. What am I walking into?
Outwardly, it's a dance club.
But, you know, I'm not gonna sit there and say that unless it gets confirmed.
Hope the timekeeper kept your warranty.
Is that? Whoa, the Hi.
But, you know, I don't think it's appropriate to have an African American woman play Helen of Troy.
I want to study your
And
sweet
it's
moves.
nothing to do with the actress's ability to act. It's the fact that if you want to be technical, you're insulting Greek culture by doing things this way.
My friends are never going to believe this. Okay. Shoot that target over there. Pretty please. fine, I guess. But I heard vault hunters shoot lasers out of their eyes. Well, how about getting up on that roof? Can you get up there? No ladders.
A ladder? What am I? Some kind of hack? Ah!
So I guess this means you can't just jump
So, you know, that's my 2 cents there. Then, as Ezra Miller, as the great hero Achilles, you know, I guess the best way to say this is I am, you know, as someone who who has read part of the Iliad and described as Odysseus, and considering how Odysseus is described, not Odysseus, geez, Achilles. I'm messing up my Greek heroes here. How Achilles is described in the Iliad, you know, it's a darn shame.
For an adoring fan, you are rather critical.
I mean, if you want to be technical, Achilles is a demigod, and, you know,
That sucked. I thought you'd rip it open with your huge muscles. You just looked like a little kid throwing a temper tantrum.
you know,
Takes one to know one's brand.
you're making a demigod look like a femboy.
Follow me.
The only thing better than hubris is comeuppance. This should be good.
And if you want to be technical, the only one who fits that description close enough is Dionysus. But he is still a definely handsome, but he would still be considered a handsome man. Well, a beautiful man, if you will. You know, not like rugged masculine that you would associate with Ares or Zeus, but he's the closest definition of, you know, a pretty boy, at least from some of the descriptions that are out there of him. He's the closest definition to pretty boy. So Ezra Miller being a variation of Dionysus,
On second thought,
I mean, I could kind of see it. I wouldn't love it, but I could kind of see it.
I was so wrong. You are the best.
But having a
I'll get the Holy Tell
transgendered
everyone how
man
cool you are.
play as one of the greatest Greek heroes outside of Heracles. FYI, Heracles is how the Greek pronounce Hercules' name. Because Latin, if you want to be technical, Hercules would be how the Romans would say Hercules' name. Heracles would be how the Greeks say it.
send more my way.
So there's a there's a little bit of a teaching moment for everybody right now. But, you know, the point is that, you know, it's very bad casting to have these people play these let's see, is historical figure the right word here? No, it's not. It would be more accurate to describe the mythological figures. Yes, that's actually the better way to phrase it. it's poor casting and bad writing to have these people play these mythological characters. And, you know, because from my perspective, the black actress is probably a better actor than Ezra Miller, considering she was actually playing one of the Dura Milaje in Black Panther. So I actually think the black actress is a better actor than Ezra Miller, to be bluntly honest with everybody. So take that for what it's worth. I mean, this is basically what they did to Star Wars all over again. Because the problem is that they actually had a half-decent story with half-decent characters, and they blew it all on diversity and inclusion. Now, I'm pretty sure there'll be people saying, how dare I besmirch Rey? Well, the problem with Rey's character there were problems in all three trilogies. And, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and defend each three trilogy. I'm not gonna sit here and defend everything, but I will point out because the thing that matters to me is lore-wise, not necessarily story-wise. And what do I mean by this? I mean, I'm literally sitting here talking about how Jedi training takes place. Now, we can start with the protagonist of each series. You know, we start out with Luke Skywalker. So by starting out with Luke, you know, Luke is maybe late teens, early 20s. In A New Hope. And let's see, which mission do I want to do? I guess we'll go here. But, you know, Luke is in A New Hope. You know, he's, you know, at most 19, 20. And he really hasn't really done any sort of training for any type of Jedi training. You know, after Uncle Ben and Aunt May get offed, you know, he goes with Obi-Wan. They get to Han Solo and they take off, and you know, Obi-Wan gives Obi-Wan gives Luke a couple of lessons and finds that, you know, Luke's potential to be a Jedi is pretty damn clear, but he needs to be trained. So, you know, it's very much pointed out that, you know, Luke has great potential, just as Anakin and Rey do, but he needs to be trained. And Obi-Wan gives, I'm guessing during A New Hope, you know, Obi-Wan gives Luke the most basic bare bones training. You know, let's see. You know, Jedi methodology, maybe some Force lessons for the most basic Force abilities that younglings at the Jedi Temple would learn. And, you know, then they get pulled into the Death Star. Obi-Wan shuts down the shield. And then Obi-Wan has his final duel with Darth Vader, where Obi-Wan becomes one with the Force. And from there, Luke can't be trained anymore. But thanks to Obi-Wan's guidance and Luke's natural Force abilities, you know, he manages to blow up the Death Star. You know, he gets the job done. And thanks to some timely intervention from Han Solo, you know, mission accomplished. So, with that in case now the Empire strikes back. It's 3 years later. You know, Luke. So, you know, everyone is working in the rebels, in the Rebel Alliance, you know, doing this, doing that. Luke ends up receiving, not receiving, but Obi-Wan's Force Ghost comes to Luke and tells him to seek out Master Yoda on Dagobah. And eventually, Luke makes his way to Dagobah and meets Master Yoda. And, you know, Yoda doesn't tell him who he is at first, because he wants to see Luke's reaction to him and how he acts. And eventually, you know, in the in Yoda's hut, you know, we get the scene with Luke finally losing his temper and Yoda saying, "I cannot teach him. He has no patience." And he's like, "I want to be a Jedi. You know, I'm ready for this." And, you know, this is where you get Yoda's strongest lines in that movie. And, you know, what does Yoda turn and say to him? "Jedi? You want to be a Jedi?" What does you know of being a Jedi? For 900 years have I trained Jedi. A Jedi must have this most serious mind and the willingness to, well, that's not how it goes. Must have serious mind and dedication. And what do you have? What do you seek? You seek adventure. You seek thrill. Ah, a Jedi does not crave these things. You are reckless.
Successful people don't follow society's rules. They don't read building codes or obey orders as people. Innovate, pioneer, disrupt.
And, Yoda makes it very clear to him that becoming a Jedi doesn't rely on, thrill of adventure. You have to be dedicated to this call, to what it means to be a Jedi. And it's not clear how much time Luke spends with Yoda on Dagobah before Luke goes off to Hoth City to save Han and Leia. But it's at least a month to 3 months that he spends initially training with Yoda. And then we have the famous Cloud City duel where no happens.
Does gliding have to do with success? In this challenge, you'll learn the answer, and then you can tell me, because
So from there, after the Empire Strikes Back, we move to the Return of the Jedi. And, after doing a lot of research, it's the timeline is not clear. Even in the novelization of the movies, it's not clear. It's not clear. It's not clear that after getting out of Cloud City, how long just how long Luke trained with Yoda, but it must have been anywhere from a year to a few, maybe 1 or 2 years at most, and that's when Master Yoda becomes one with the Force. Just as Obi-Wan did. And there's also that, and it also doesn't talk about how Luke made his green lightsaber is another point of subject here to talk about too, but I'm not going to get into that because that's an interesting story. I mean, if you guys want to hear it, I'll tell you. But it's not relevant to what I'm talking about right now. But, Luke spends more time training. Now, the key things we have to remember here is that Luke was trained by arguably two of the greatest Jedi Masters of their era. So, because it's arguable that Yoda might be one of the greatest masters of all time, even with his failures, that he was still one of the greatest Jedi Masters. There'll be those who will probably disagree with me and tell me I'm wrong. That's why I'm saying of their era.
Why did I make these so spinny? Curse my whimsical ideas.
So, from here, we now go to the Return of the Jedi. And, you know, people will sit there and say, well, how did Luke beat Darth Vader, you know, this Sith Master, with at most maybe 3 years of Jedi training? Well, the thing that isn't talked about, that what happens in between the movies, where Vader wants to know how the heck Obi-Wan hid his son from him, because Vader didn't figure out that Leia was also his daughter until he actually learned the truth by probing Luke's mind with the Force. But the thing that isn't discussed, you know, it was a comic book, but it wasn't something that was, is that Darth Vader went and went to Padme Amidala's tomb on not Tatooine. Oh, I forget the name of Padme's homeworld where she was queen. I mean, it was also the same world that Darth Sidious was from, because they were actually from the same planet.
If you have to fail, can you fail better? You're embarrassing the Academy.
Yeah, considering you're the guy in the flying hover thing. But, you know, Vader goes there and after having the medical chip read, Vader discovers that Padme's last words were actually said was that she still believes in the goodness of Anakin Skywalker. And according to the official sources, that caused a great schism for Darth Vader, because it didn't break him from the dark side just yet, but it threw him into a great amount of conflict, because Vader had told himself that he had suppressed what was left of Anakin Skywalker, but upon hearing his wife's words that she still believed in the goodness, that there was still goodness in him, it threw everything into chaos inside Vader. So by the time the Return of the Jedi happens, Darth Vader didn't really believe in the mission of the Empire anymore. Because his belief in himself and everything had been broken by the words of the one person he loved the most outside of his mother. So you know, by the time the Empire Strike, I mean, not the Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Luke wasn't fighting a fully dedicated Darth Vader. He was fighting a Darth Vader who was very much in conflict with himself and the dark side, because yes, he was dedicated to the dark side, but there was also the fact that the light that now Anakin Skywalker, who he believed was no more of himself, was now suddenly making really big strides to come back to the light. And Darth Vader was in a massive amount of conflict within himself. You know, this was never brought up in the movies. And that broke his resolve in the dark side. And because it broke his resolve in the dark side, and that's, if you wanted to be technical, that's actually what made Vader lose, because he lost his resolve in the dark side and in his belief. And Palpatine knew it, and that's why he wanted Luke to replace him. So when Luke said, "No, I am a Jedi," and Palpatine just started force lightning blasting him, Anakin Skywalker was already on his way back. And, you know, it needs to be said. So, when Luke is on the floor being basically electrocuted to near death, and you know, Darth Vader hears, "Father, please, Father, please," because, and you know, that not only caused his protective instincts to kick in, but you know, you also had to remember that Anakin Skywalker never had a father. And, you know, anyone who's heard the psychology of people who have been either orphaned or anything of the like, you know, a lot of those people tend to value family very strongly. And that's what finally broke through to Anakin Skywalker. And that's when Darth Vader went bye-bye, and we had the return of Anakin Skywalker. So, from there, you know, this is where we get the scene of Darth Vader picking up Anakin Skywalker picking up Darth Sidious and throwing him into the power core of the Death Star. And, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how The Return of the Jedi ends. If you haven't seen it, go watch the darn movie. So now we go to the question of, how did Luke actually defeat Darth Vader? Luke defeated Darth Vader. The sad truth is that the Darth Vader that he dueled in Cloud City and the Darth Vader he faced in The Return of the Jedi was the same skilled saber duelist, but Vader's resolve in the dark side, in his rage, in his belief, it was broken. And he didn't, and to a degree, he didn't even, he didn't, you know, he was still Darth Vader until Luke begged his father to save him. But the resolve that Vader had in Cloud City was broken, because the only other person Vader loved outside of his mother had basically thrown a mental machete into everything he believed and everything he had become, and it broke something inside of Darth Vader, and that break is which broke his resolve and allowed Luke Skywalker to win and forge the path for the return of Anakin Skywalker. So, saying that Luke beat Darth Vader, kinda.
What? I mean, you know.
Not really.
The smell of this thing. Where were you keeping it? Oh, Levine's gonna love this. Or hate it. She's a hard woman to read. That'll keep the bodies at bay.
So, if you want to be technical, Luke Skywalker lucked out the win against Darth Vader.
Your side. Just scratch the serial number up and she'll be right as rain. If you got any more like this, you know.
Because Vader's resolve was broken, and there was this massive internal conflict inside of Vader.
The smell of this thing. Where were you keeping it? I'll miss our little
If that hadn't been there, you know, it's hard to say if Luke would have won. I mean, if Luke, you know, if we're saying that Darth Vader wasn't in that suit, you know, more than likely, Luke would have lost not only the first time, he would have lost the second time. Because Anakin Skywalker, if you actually paid enough attention, he was considered one of the best saber duelists outside of people like Yoda and Mace Windu, because And he also had master, and he was also a master of Surisu. So both explode on impact. Actually, yeah, we'll see how this singularity one works out. So if you want to be if you really want to get to the nitty gritty of it, Luke Skywalker lucked out his win against Darth Vader. Pure and simple. He lucked out, and the fact that Anakin and the fact that Luke, Anakin Skywalker was trying that Darth Vader was becoming Anakin Skywalker again, and ultimately that spelled the end there.
The ongoing Ripper assaults have taken a toll on attendance. At least you won't have to wait in line now.
So, for those saying that Luke's a Mary Sue, Anakin's a Mary Sue, Rey's a Mary Sue, I mean, the profile kind of fits.
Lots of folks looking for their place in the augers these days.
But it's not 100% accurate. And, you know, from there, let's move on to the prequel trilogy before Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader. So let's remember this. Luke Skywalker lucked out in the final battle against his father.
That must be so hard for him. Oh, and you. How exhausted you must be. You deserve some relaxation, some respite.
So, now that let's go to the prequel trilogy with Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Qui-Gon Jinn. You know, we're not going to focus on the events of the Phantom Menace outside of the fact that it was clear that Anakin
Give me number one's usual. Think.
that you know, Anakin Skywalker
Something about explosions being hydrating? I don't get it either, but that's what he likes.
was a fairly gifted gifted force user with a large amount of metachlorians.
Cheers. Thank you. You're right. What great time.
So we're going to skip over most of the movie until we get to the end to where
How you doing? Sorry if you had trouble getting up here. Some of my guys ain't too bright. Why I need you? I gotta
you know,
get
we
job.
see Anakin
Said you're the best.
in a Padawan dress, in Padawan clothing, and you know, it doesn't. And then we actually jump to the Clone Wars movie, where let's see, Anakin was what, 8 or 9.
You were wise to come to me. Tell me more about
And he's now,
I got a big job
what,
for someone who loves
14
a
at
big
most?
payday.
Maybe
Doesn't hurt if you
15?
hate vile liquor,
Maybe
too.
16? I'm not
Well,
100%
before we get
clear.
into all that,
It wasn't, I don't think it was ever made 100% clear in the
please do a little
movies.
something for me.
the anticipation is killing me.
Simmer down, kid. It ain't. Gee, it's just embarrassing. Someone stole my mask and I
But-
need to steal it back. Don't tell me you ain't noticed this ill.
But anyway,
It's the best I can do, short term.
so now we have Anakin Skywalker, who's been trained for,
About the underworld. Respect is everything, and I've been disrespected. Plus, let's
we'll
just
say
face
about
it,
6
people
years.
off the rack mask.
6-7 years. He's been training with Obi-Wan Kenobi, learning to use Force abilities,
My fence.
learning Jedi wisdom, learning Jedi
Guy works
philosophy.
out of a scrap yard that used to be a strip club. Calls it the thirst scrap. Head over there and see if you can shake some info loose.
Thirst scrap, eh?
Learning
Sounds like my kind of
learning
place.
lightsaber
I will let you know.
learning lightsaber forms and everything.
My fence is awful particular about his rules. Keep that in mind, huh?
So he spent 6-7 years learning, and it shows when Anakin does his shenanigans. I mean, who forgets the scene where he's like, "Well, I'm sorry, Master," then jumps out of the hover vehicle, and what does Obi-Wan say? I hate it when he does that. So from there, you know, we're getting,
The boss seems
you know,
perfect.
now we actually can get a good idea of what a properly trained Jedi looks like.
To me, when friendship was difficult to find. Though his path on the mountain is erratic, he has yet to let me down.
Erratic is just fine in my
And you know, when we compare Luke, and Anakin at this stage, you know, it's kind of obvious that, you know, if we were to compare and contrast, you know, Luke Skywalker at the end of Return of the Jedi, and Anakin Skywalker in the Attack of the Clones, you know, we get the distinct impression that, you know, Anakin is probably better trained, maybe not as strong as Luke is at the end with Force abilities, in terms of Force abilities. But, you know, if this was a straight Imano duel of sabers, you know, it's hard to say who would win, but it's more than likely that Anakin Skywalker would edge out. Because his training was better and superior to Luke's. So, you know, now the question then becomes, well, okay, if that's true, and I've already discussed how Luke won, and that, you know, it's, and how he lucked out. So now we have an Anakin Skywalker that is who is a properly trained Jedi Padawan, who goes a bit more off what the what he senses from the Force. And, you know, he's impulsive, he's reckless. You know, every little bit thing that Luke was called. When he first meets Master Yoda. Surprise, surprise. So now the question then becomes, well, how is it that Anakin lost to Count Dooku? Well, you have to remember, Anakin for his generation was one of the best saber duelists of that generation. But if you want to be technical, Darth Tyrannus or Count Dooku, he was actually the best saber duelist of his generation. So you had two different best trained saber duelists, and Dooku won because he took advantage of the fact that Anakin was impulsive and he was also angry about everything that had happened.
We've lost touch. Scouts are expensive.
So, Dooku took advantage of the fact that he was better, he remained calm, and everything.
But we've lost touch with them, and the device is still on the fritz. It will be a difficult and dangerous climb, but we need the device functional and our scouts.
So, Dooku won, not by cheating or low blows, if you will. Here he won because he took advantage of Anakin's weaknesses. And if you're gonna leave yourself open to an enemy and you either get hurt or you get ended, well, you're not gonna see a lot of people being like, well, it's, the attitude's going to be is stupid is as stupid does, whether it's earned or not. So from there, we go. So Anakin. So from there, instead of jumping to Revenge of the Sith, we're gonna jump to the. Because I still believe that the Clone Wars animated cartoons are still canon. I believe they're still canon. We actually get to see, what made Anakin so beloved by the Republic. It was the fact that Anakin, he was one of the best Jedi generals and he basically earned everything. And then this is also where we see him training Ahsoka Tano, who arguably isn't as strong as Rey is, but she was a much better Jedi and a better trained Force user than Rey ever was or would or will be, because we don't really know what happened to Rey's story at the end of the last movie that I don't even remember the name of. And the thing that's actually sad right now is that, we're not even focusing on the last movie. Well, Disney's not even focusing on continuing Rey's storyline. They're actually focusing on the Mandalorian Grogu storyline. And, those movies were so poorly received that they're probably not even going to consider another trilogy. So, we sit here and see just how much of a good teacher Anakin Skywalker is. I mean, considering how thoroughly he trained Ahsoka Tano, and he trained her so damn well that she survived Order 66, not by the skin of her teeth, but it was because she actually was just that good. And how did she get that good? Anakin Skywalker trained her to be that good. So, from there, after the Clone Wars cartoon ends, we pick up on the Revenge of the Sith. Anakin is a fully fledged Jedi Knight. He has the saber skills of a Jedi Master. But because the Jedi... And, he might be lacking in a couple of, he's probably lacking in a couple of, Force abilities or uses of the Force that other masters may or may not use. But, overall, Anakin was at the skill level of a Jedi Master in at least saber combat. Use of Force abilities, like I said, he was probably lacking a little bit, but he wasn't that far behind.
I see your youth and raise you a whore.
What the? Is that a human? An actual living human being? Here?
So, it's very much, we go from here. Now, how... So, now we go to the Revenge of the Sith.
Seems I should be asking you that.
And Anakin gets a bunch of different visions. He's worried about Padme. And we also had to remember and he thinks that the Jedi Order is hiding things from him, which they are to a degree.
Or I'm dying, maybe.
As high as we are, my friend, I would place a large bet that you are much, much higher. Ooh.
All right, you caught me.
And
Maybe
you know,
I got a little freaked
he
out and
what is his sole goal? He wants to save his wife, the woman he loves, from the
How
death
about
that
this?
he
You
foresaw.
stumble your way home, and I take care of everything else.
Oh, great. Great. Oh, wait. Take my power cell. Pretty sure you
And
for something.
you know,
Seemed important.
by the time he discovers
You are not strong
that
and fast enough for my
Palpatine
taste.
is Darth Sidious, you know,
I must
he's
find where this power cell
already morally compromised. Because Darth Sidious promised him that he could save Padme. So Anakin was torn between saving the woman he loved after the loss of his mother and not believing there should be a grapple spot. Where is it? There it is. That's what I was looking for. But
Superb.
so he's torn between exposing Darth Sidious and saving Padme. Because if he doesn't expose Darth Sidious and put an end to him, end to Darth Sidious, the war between the Separatists and the Old Republic, well, not the old, yeah, the Old Republic is not going to stop. But if he does expose,
Something, I would say. Good luck.
but if he does expose Darth Sidious, then there's a reasonable chance that Padme Amidala will die. He doesn't want either. So ultimately, Anakin discloses who Darth Sidious is to Mace Windu, and Anakin shows up. And Anakin shows up just as Darth Sidious is about to lose his fight to Mace Windu. And he can't. And the problem that Anakin has is that if Darth Sidious dies, then there's a good chance he's going to lose Padme. So, you know, what does Anakin ultimately decide to do? He turns on Mace Windu to save Palpatine, and then he falls to become Lord Vader. He comes to the dark side. Oh, now where was I? Ah, yes. Anakin falls to the dark side and becomes Darth Vader.
What a lift!
And, you know, his first task is to purge the Jedi Temple and all those in opposition in the temple. And Anakin does his job, and then Palpatine sends him to, and then after that's done, Palpatine sends him to Mustafar. To end the Separatist leaders and so that way the Empire can fully take control. And, you know, Anakin goes to Mustafar and he starts, and, you know, Obi-Wan sneaks aboard Padme's ship, ends the Separatist leaders. Obi-Wan sneaks into Padme's ship, and then this is where you see, then this is where the duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan take place. And, you know, the thing that's actually sad is that if Anakin had actually been, if he had been fighting smarter, he actually could have won that duel. But his arrogance cost him the duel with Obi-Wan. His arrogance cost him the duel and his other arm and both of his legs. From right around the kneecap area. And that also seriously inhibited his force abilities. Because as it turns out, if you lose body parts, that cuts down on your midichlorian count severely. So even though Darth Vader was essentially a cripple, he was still pretty damn dangerous. So, you know, if we go over the duel with Obi-Wan, Anakin didn't lose because he wasn't skilled enough. He didn't lose because he didn't tap into the dark side enough. No. Anakin lost because of his own arrogance. I mean, even Palpatine admonished him for that after the duel. Although, granted, if Anakin had actually won the duel, it's believed by a lot of people in the fan base, as soon as Palpatine showed up, Anakin would have ended him. And taken over. And to truth be told, such is the nature of the Sith. So, you know, so as we can see here from both the prequels and the original 3 movies, Luke lucked out. Luke lucked out because Darth Vader was already emotionally compromised, and his resolve to his resolve to the Empire and his resolve to the dark side was breaking. No hands, ifs, or buts. It was breaking. So Luke Skywalker lucked out his win there. And as for Anakin Skywalker and what happened in the prequel trilogy, it was his own damn arrogance.
The Timekeeper's forces are in disarray. He talks of installing regional governors, a clear violation of Augur sovereignty, when we
that cost him the duel with Obi-Wan Kenobi and got him put in that suit.
The Claves must be united, and I must be careful with whom I conspire. For now, I will only share these notes with my trusted friend, Passionate Linder.
So, you know, so now we move to, what was that first movie? It wasn't The Last Jedi, it was something else. No, it was The Force Awakens, that's it.
Hey there, stranger. Hey, look here. You know Kairos is as
The
flat as
Last
glitter, don't you?
Jedi
Well, now, hold on a minute.
was the
Is that
second
a
movie,
yes?
and
You
The Rise of
wager you can
Skywalker was
prove
the third
Kairos
movie.
ain't flat?
A rich idiot? Oh, my favorite kind.
Alright, folks, I need a bathroom break and a snack, so I'll be right back. All right, everyone. I'm sorry that took so long, but I'm back.
I accept your wager.
Yes, we have a bet. A new orbalist to temper in the flame of flat wisdom. That's what that is right there.
Wisdom?
So now we move into
Yeah, classic trauma response. Seen it before.
the new 3
You'll be
movies.
all right. I can tell this ain't gonna be easy though. But we'll make a flat truther out of you yet. Now, have a look-see. I've been
And
saving
instead
this
of
for
getting
just
this
such an
weird
occasion.
hybrid mix of the Legacy series,
This is it. How fun to have a physical representation of how stupid someone can be.
The light of our flat forebears' knowledge is blistering, is it not? Now, spin on that silly axis of yours and look over there.
we get
Tell me, Rounder, what do you see?
An orb, but not the kind for pondering.
Oh man, it's one of your dang globes. Look at
We
it, all
get,
shapely with all its luscious curves. That thing's indecent. All right,
this,
now go give it a stomp. Quick
you know,
like.
it's been like what, 20, 30, you know, years or so since the fall of the Empire.
Where Kairos was, a disc remains.
Now, that is some quality smash therapy.
And, you know, there are scavengers scavenging what the most useful parts
Lighter and
out of the ships, and we meet this strange woman who seems to be some form of force sensitive.
Of the shapes, that's just geology. All them asteroids in space would bash it into a pancake in no time. Sam,
Well,
round
that's
pounder,
not how the movie
0.
starts, but
do me a favor, friend. Shake your head. Anything rattling around in there?
Hell, I got more where that came from. Follow me. Them glowboard lights
you know,
got the
we
looks in
get
your
this woman
I'm sorry. I
who
bet you believe in all
clearly
kinds of
is
nonsense.
some form of force
Gravity,
sensitive.
bird,
How strong it
tipping
is, how
20%
weak
on
it is.
counter
You know, we're not really
20%
given a good
is
idea of
right.
that.
But wait, if the world is flat, what happens if you fall off the edge?
Now, time for you to
Witness the world as our ancestors did. Climb on up till you reach our shrine. That's the thing of beauty. Wake up, spherist. Everyone knows that Edge is made up of the Kairos ice wall. They got, pictures. Stops our seas from spilling and stuff from falling off. Another point to Sammy. Thank you.
You're very nice. I enjoy trying new things.
There. Look out at that wide vista. Don't see a lick of curvature.
So we get the impression that this woman
Do you? Just proper, proven
is at a bare minimum some kind of force sensitive. You know, she's not, you know, we're not given a real good idea of,
How about I find us some real evidence?
you know, we're not given an idea of just how powerful her force abilities could be or couldn't be. Because the way that the force influence is force sensitive is different per each sensitive. I mean, if you remember from the original trilogy, not the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, Anakin Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker's the way that his force abilities manifested when he was a boy was that he could anticipate.
Go far. Did you see the red ship down below? I bet my right hand. We found it. We could show the Kairos
things and events that helped him get out of trouble and other things. You know, that was to a degree the extent. You know, he couldn't force push, he couldn't force pull, he couldn't force meditate, he couldn't deploy a force barrier to shield him from other other things. Users. But, you know, the point is that that was the some extent of what Anakin Skywalker could do. Then, in Luke's case, it was very similar. He could... But one of the big noticeable differences between Luke and Anakin wasn't
We may disagree on what's what, but I still like you.
was that Luke couldn't, you know, Luke could anticipate certain things, but he also had the guidance of the Force Ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And, you know, that pushed Luke to trust more in his natural force, his what would be like, basically you could describe it as his force senses.
That's a lot of work just to lose a lot of dough, but I think it's great you're trying so hard.
Now I just need to find a place to launch our Savias. Ipo, find us some higher ground, please.
And ultimately he used those senses not only to blow up the Death Star, but on more than one occasion to save himself.
Why don't the trees and buildings go flying out the sky?
Until he actually received some proper training from Yoda. So we see a pattern here that most Force sensitives don't use Force abilities. The Force for them is a bit like a guiding hand or gives them a warning. You know, there's no force push, there's no force pull, you know, there's none of that until you actually get some training from either a Sith or a Jedi. So, you know, that is the sole extent of that. And, you know, we can see a little bit of that with Rey. Not gonna lie, we see a little bit of that.
Just got my eyes on the new one. But
here, you know, that's the some extent of what we get from Rey. And, you know, it's... So we get that from Rey, and, you know, that's what you expect to see. It's like, oh, that's fairly normal for a Force sensitive. you know, an untrained force sensitive. You know, this is normal. You know, we're still in, okay, you know, we're still in, this is green, you know, this is good territory. You know, we're not seeing anything completely out of the norm until we get to the end of the movie where Rey has that duel with Kylo Ren. Now, we can sit here and say that because she used that staff as her primary fighting weapon, you know, she didn't really use a blaster. And, you know, we can sit here and say that her using that would give her a better idea of how to fight with a lightsaber. Yeah, that does track a little bit. Using martial weaponry. Using martial weaponry does translate a little bit. It doesn't translate greatly, but it does translate. And I'm using the word translate here to basically say that because she used a staff to fight with, you know, she was used to using a physical weapon and not some sort of firearm. So it allowed her a little bit of, you know, grace isn't the right word here. It allowed her to be able to at least not be, you know, completely green like the what's his name? Like, it wasn't Finnick, it was something else. I'm thinking of a completely different series when I say Finnick, aren't I? I think it was Finn. That was it. I think it was. I think I'm thinking of Finn here. But, you know, Finn got his butt handed to him by Kylo Ren because the guy was just used to using a blaster. He wasn't used to fighting with a handheld martial weapon. So that does translate that Rey would have had, you know, better experience in swinging around and swinging a lightsaber around. But, you know, in the case of Kylo Ren here, he was trained initially by Luke Skywalker and later picked up and was later received more training by what was he called, like Leader Snork, or what was it, what was the leader's name? It was like Snock or Snork, something like that. What was it, like Grand Leader Snork or whatever? I can't remember the guy's name because I always knew that guy he wasn't really, he was like mid-tier pathetic villain in my mind. He was not a good villain. But, you know, Kylo Ren studied saber form. He had practice with saber form. He dueled and, you know, he fought. He dueled. You know, there was absolutely no way a novice, a woman who had basically no saber form training outside of her use of her own bow staff use. And, was going to win. And there's also not to mention the fact that she force pulled a lightsaber when she had never used that ability. She had never trained to use that ability. And the reason why I bring up training here as so important is that if we actually look at how Force abilities are used, you know, it took Anakin Skywalker 6-7 years training with Obi-Wan Kenobi, learning Jedi philosophy, Jedi wisdom, and saber combat, constantly sparring with Obi-Wan, that we actually see
A bit more number crunching, and this will be
to where we actually get some form of a saber duelist. And saying that Kylo Ren, who had, let's see, according to The Last Jedi, Luke started training Kylo Ren when he was at least 12 or so. At bare minimum, he was at least 12. And then a year or two into the training, Luke got the sense that Ben Skywalker, his nephew, was a bit more attuned for the dark side than he wanted, than he would have admitted to himself. And he was afraid of the fact that because their father failed to the dark side, that Kylo Ren, that Ben Skywalker would also fall to the dark side. So he prepared to remove the threat. Mind you, no Jedi would actually do that. They would actually course correct. So there's already a really big contradiction from everything that Luke was taught by from Obi-Wan and Master Yoda.
I should get a lottery ticket.
Obviously, it's the moon itself that's fake. It's free to look.
So there's already a major conflict and contradiction right there. Because Jedi do not do things based on fear. So there's already a major contradiction right there for this storyline. But back on to Kylo Ren versus Rey in The Force Awakens. You know, the really, really big problem here isn't the fact that, you know, somehow Rey managed to pull off a Force pull. It was the fact that during a saber duel where Rey knew no saber forms, had at best minimum experience using a bow staff.
Alright, look sharp, future flatter. Your birthday balloon's in a holding pattern.
That humans make for slow days.
So, you know, it
The guns have started attacking on their own. A pack of them even ran us out of our old base. I would have taken them on myself, but, you know, I wanted to keep
it's
living. Damn it all to crap, they're
not quite rich. Eva, grab that data for me. Thor really knows how to blow stuff up.
So now you have Ren Palpatine versus Kylo Ren. He's not even Darth Kylo or Darth Ren. He's just Kylo Ren. And somehow this untrained minimum hand-to-hand, minimum martial weapon practice training
Not to be that guy, but it is checkmate. Checkmate.
and she manages to beat someone who has at bare minimum 10 plus years of saber practice. What? You know, that does not happen. I'm sorry, but even if you were the luckiest human being to ever live in the Star Wars galaxy, that makes no sense. I mean, you know, the argument could be made that Kylo Ren was so arrogant, just like Anakin was, that he underestimated Ren. I mean, sure, that could very well be a factor here, but there's one thing that has to be said. It has to be known, and it has to be pretty damn clear. And that thing is that, you know, is that even if Rey was one of the luckiest people to ever exist in the Star Wars galaxy, there's one fundamental problem. Even if she was one of the luckiest people to ever exist in the Star Wars universe, you cannot luck your way out of fighting a more skilled opponent who can do things that, you know, if you had a proper teacher and other things, you know, you could probably learn, but it's not gonna happen. That's like a novice fencer defeating an Olympian level fencer. It doesn't happen. Period. End of discussion. It does not happen. So, you know, I'm going to sit here and say this right now. Even if Rey was one of the luckiest people in the whole Star Wars universe, she wasn't going to be able to beat Kylo Ren in any form of duel. It wasn't gonna happen. With just the skill difference and everything, it wasn't gonna happen. It didn't matter if Ren was that lucky. So, call me whatever you want. Sadly, facts are facts. Sure, Kylo Ren may have been arrogant in his duel with Rey. Sure. I can agree to that. But that still doesn't undo or change the fact that Rey was an untrained force sensitive who had possessed minimal dueling skills and everything. And what else? Minimal dueling skills and basically no real combat experience, at least not that we know of, or not, because we're never given an impression, you know, how often Rey was fighting against people with that staff. But the impression we get is that she wasn't doing it often. Now, could she swing that staff around and bop somebody on the head? Absolutely, and more than likely, she did it a couple of times. But would it be the equivalent of someone who spent, you know, 10 plus years or so saber dueling with other people? You know, no, it's not equivalent here. I mean, even Death Battle, when they're comparing skill sets and other things, you know, they base the winner of most battles based on, you know, whose skills were superior. I mean, even the Bowser versus Dr. Robotnik, where a lot of people say that Eggman should have won. You know, my issue isn't that Eggman couldn't have won. My issue is that Dr. Robotnik, at least in the setting there, that it was the game setting Robotnik, and the comic books that came from the game. You know, Robotnik, you know, Bowser has access to wish level magic with the Star Rod, for Pete's sake. And anyone who understands that wish level having the power of wish level magic at any point, that's a kind of game changer that's a game-changing level of alteration magic where you can change the very outcome of certain things. So, you know, I can agree that, you know, Eggman probably should have had, you know, that certain skills between Dr. Eggman and, between Bowser and Ivo Robotnik. Can I agree that in some cases that, you know, they should have been more tied on certain things? Yeah, I can agree to that. That they should be tied on certain things. I mean, the fact that, it was kind of, the fact that they said that the Bowser's minions were better than Robotnik's. In some cases, that was true, but it's not 100% true. I mean, Goombas are known to be incredibly dumb. I mean, not dumb, but they're known to not really be able to do certain things without a very capable leader. So saying that some of Bowser's minions were better than Dr. Ivo's, when Ivo Robotnik had far more coordination and control over his machines, you know, I could see that that's contentious, because at certain points, some of Bowser's minions were far more better than the machines being controlled by Ivo Robotnik. Because if Ivo's busy or he's doing other things... Ooh, hello, legendary. You know, the cohesion of Robotnik's machines does go down. Heck, we even see that in the Sonic movies, where Jim Carrey's Ivo Robotnik has to be controlling, his right hand in the form of Agent Stone has to be in control of said drone, of those drones. So there are some cases where Bowser's minions edge out, and then there are cases where they don't. Now, why do I bring this up in this instance? I bring it up because if we're comparing skill, force talent, natural force use, natural force talent, you know, saber skills, Kylo Ren wins. For force use, force talent, technically speaking, Kylo Ren edges out. Kylo Ren edges out in force use, perhaps not force talent, and also let's see, if we're going by categories of skill, force use, force talent, their physical conditioning, and I guess you could even throw in both of their resolves. Well, let's see. The resolve between Ren and Rey would be about, I mean, you could almost call that equal, I suppose. Especially after Kylo Ren put his lightsaber through Han Solo. So, ow, why did my neck pop? Well, no, I guess my neck popped like that. But, you know, it's very much so that you know, in terms of, you know, everything, you know, that in terms, let's see, force use, Kylo Ren wins. Lightsaber dueling skills, Kylo Ren wins. We say Ren wins luck. You know, maybe Rey is a more sensitive force user. You know, that's not entirely impossible. But, you know, that also ties out in the fact that, you know, even though she's this,
I feel like some kind of drifter or something.
you know, just because you're naturally better with the Force doesn't really mean a lot when you're not properly trained. So it is arguable that Rey edges out in luck and Force potential, but if you can't access that Force potential that well, that means that, you know, that still leaves Kylo Ren with more, and we also have to, and again, we also have to account for experience here in battle. So, you know, I'm not gonna sit there and spell it out for everybody, but the point is, noisy cricket, huh? That's interesting. Basically it's a pistol sniper from Halo, basically. But back on to the subject of Rey versus Ren, at very least in The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren edges out in at least 4 different categories, while Rey edges out in at most 3. So technically speaking, Kylo Ren wins. Now, this is The Force Awakens at the very end. So that basically means that Rey should not have won. Now it could be if they had wanted to hand Rey a soft win, a soft loss because of what I just laid out, you know, they could have the fact that while in the middle of Rey and Ren's duel, all of a sudden there's a squadron of X-Fighters drop from the sky, and all of a sudden, you know, Ren's running from ship-sized blaster fire, and ultimately it is Rey's loss. But you know, overall, you know, Rey Rey in terms of everything I laid out outside of, you know, hero plot armor, blah blah blah. See why it's called Noisy Cricket now. I love it, don't get me wrong. And it does actually act like the Men in Black thing. So, I'm not going to sit here and harp on this any longer. But, you know, if you break it down, you know, Rey should have lost. She should not have won that duel. And I'm not saying she would have lost because she's a woman. No, I'm saying she would have lost because she's not trained. She doesn't have the necessary skill to take on a well, I wouldn't call Kylo Ren a properly trained Sith, but I would sit here and say that he is a fully established Sith. So, someone who's not even a jet, who has not even the training of a Jedi Padawan, should be able to defeat a fully fledged Sith. So it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit, period. Despite what a lot of people would say. I'm not saying this stuff to besmirch Rey. I'm not saying this to belittle her. I'm saying this in the terms of I am saying this as a point of fact. That, you know, give Rey her ups, give Rey her downs. There's no way she wins, at least at this point, outside of plot armor. And they could have given her a soft loss in the beginning, instead of giving them something like Luke's loss in The Empire Strikes Back. You know, if they really wanted to do that, they could have. And that would have been their choice. Wouldn't have been my choice, but it would have looked a lot better. If you were a moviegoer. Now, as we go through the trilogy, we find that Rey spends at very least a year with Leia, you know, training.
Groundlander, you consider that the Order might not like your little birthday balloon party?
They are just mad they were not invited.
Oh, shot to smithereens.
Training with Leia. Because as we learned in the second movie, Luke actually started training Leia to be a Jedi.
Always come prepared. There it is. About time.
The Last Jedi, Luke actually started training Leia to be a Jedi. So that means Leia could have spent plenty of time training
Damn, it's not. Must pull it down myself.
That means yes in sign language, boy. So, this basically tells us... Whoa. Since when does this thing do that? That's interesting. That, you know, training doesn't matter in the Star Wars universe. All you have to do is have an XY chromosome, and you're the baddest thing to walk since Master Yoda. Or Darth Sidious, for that matter.
You aren't messing with crucial equipment, are you? Folks around here are powerful serious about their TV reception.
What should I spend my winning time? I am thinking poker.
So now we go to the Last Jedi, where Rey has spent a year at least training with Leia. And she gets some philosophy lessons from Luke. Which, in the grand scheme of things, you know, is nearly equivalent to, you know, would equate to, you know, if I had to... Luke, maybe Luke's midway point in between, you know, in between The Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi. You know, that's kind of where we're sitting at best with her. And then she gets some philosophy lessons from Luke. You know, no real training. You know, a little bit of force. And, you know, that's it. Another legendary? What the heck? What is this? Oh, it's a grenade. Okay. Let's see how that works. Well, grenade module. So where's Sam at now? Because I need to... Oh, okay, he's not far then. Let's go drop some stuff off. But the point is even by the end of The Last Jedi, you know, a year and some philosophy training with Luke. Again, even if we go by, you know, the same thing I said earlier, experience, force sensitivity, force use, even if we still break all that down, Kylo Ren still technically wins. Because Rey lacks experience. And, you know, we put experience under training. You know, we replay, you know, we redo everything. And again, even if Rey was as lucky as Sam and Dean Winchester in Supernatural, as if we want an idea of things like that. You know, even if we go that route with things, you know, Rey still doesn't win.
Come to take a look at me guts?
Sometimes you have to get your hands dirty.
Wait! Why am I buying your shite? You drive a hard sucker. Not sure what I'll do with it. Just scratch the cereal. If you got any more, that'll keep the bodies at bay. Fuck! Just scratch. Not sure. You drive. If you got any more like this, that'll keep. Wait! Just scratch the cereal, nut sucker. Fuck! You're taking all me money. Guess I'll have to steal some more. Just leave the money on the dresser.
So from there, you know, it makes very little sense that Rey wins in The Force Awakens, and then in The Last Jedi, you know, Kylo Ren and her. Okay, so that means in the rematch after Kylo Ren and Snoke, or Snork, whatever the heck he's called, I know that there was some interference, but the way that it plays out, it actually shows that, you know, Ren should have won that duel again. And that's a crock. And I'm not saying it's a crock because, you know, she's a woman. I'm saying it's a crock in the conditions that I already laid out. There's no way she wins against Kylo Ren in that regard. Now, it could be argued that she'd have
my De Niro or have accepted our flat Kairos into your heart.
Neither is the case. Get ready to have your worldview rounded out.
so it can be argued that, you know, she could probably defeat the guardsmen around
If you wanted to capture absolutely nothing, you did a bang-up job.
Seems I left the camp.
the Supreme Commander Snork or Snoke or whatever the heck he's called. So yeah, it could be argued that she might be able to defeat one of them.
Program of Kairos from the provided data. Ha! You were a challenging opponent, but the result is undeniable.
But
Half of
to
my money's
actually
It certainly is
to
a
actually say
lovely
that
picture.
But of course it is.
I
she
mean,
could beat
most fakes
Ren
don't have this much detail.
is
Seer
a fat load
sympathizers
of
always hit rock
your
bottom and
delusion.
keep on digging.
And
Hey,
again,
I
this
would've
has
called
nothing
that
to
off
do
on
with
you,
the
know?
fact that she's a woman. And I'm not going to touch the Rise of Skywalker
But not in this specific
because it's not really clear how much time passed.
I gotta go find the edge of Kairos. No, don't stop me. I'm doing it so I can show you orb holes, the flat truth. Take the money, not as a concession, but as a birthday gift. Hey, I'll be in touch, and while I'm gone, try to educate yourself on your silly theories and good gracious.
It's a birthday gift.
held on to his beliefs right to the very end. Can't say the same for his wallet.
Bye, Felicia.
Another victim of hubris. I love when that happens. Rest in pieces, friend.
So, you know, what does this boil down to? It boils down to basically the fact that, you know, even if we give Rey everything in favorable conditions, you know, her odds of winning aren't great. And, you know, if we want to sit here and talk about how they stole Palpatine's cloning idea from the Legacy books, you know, we can sit there and argue that too. Or wait, or was that? It might actually be canon, but you know, Palpatine's cloning program did yield a plenty of clones that were not force sensitive. I mean, even Supreme Commander Snoke was one of the clones that actually had force abilities, because that was actually something that Palpatine was trying to do. So, you know, it very much boils down here to just, you know, it's fairly poor writing. I mean, I could... You know, I could, I can sit here and say with a certain amount of cynicism, I guess is the correct term here. I could be using the wrong term here. But, you know, in terms of story, you know, the best way to put this is that they wrote the story as "I am woman, hear me roar," and you know that was the whole thing of it. And you know, the thing that I think is sad here is that if they had actually done things a little differently, it would have been a lot better instead of doing what they did. So could have easily made a better Star Wars movie. They could have easily made a bunch of better trilogies. But they didn't. They simply chose to go with "I am woman, hear me roar." And, you know, they also glossed over...
If you got any more like this, that'll keep the buddies at bay.
And they just glossed over everything that made the original and sequels decent. Well, depending upon who you asked, the prequels were terrible, and the originals are the best. Or, you know, Revenge of the Sith sucks, and that, the Clone Wars is the best, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to sit here and get into the fan debate nuance, but if you actually go through the stories canonically, Luke's situation is purely Luke Skywalker lucked the heck out. Luke Skywalker lucked out. And he lucked out on the basis that his greatest opponent outside of Palpatine, he was losing faith in the Empire. He hadn't lost his faith in the dark side yet, but you know, everything he had been fighting for, everything that he had been doing was severely compromised by the fact that one of the people that Darth Vader loved the most, believed in his goodness, believed in the light that is Anakin Skywalker, if you will, here. So that destroyed, and that basically handed Luke the win. Handed him his win against Darth Vader, and also because Luke also believed in his own goodness, Luke refused to give in to the dark side temptation. And then for what happened to Anakin Skywalker in the prequel trilogy,
My eyes are just malfunctioning. It's fine.
you know, as for Anakin Skywalker, it was his own damn arrogance that ended up with him where he was. It was his own arrogance that put him in Darth Vader in the suit. If he had actually chose to fight smarter, he would have defeated Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was very much within his ability to do so.
That's all right. And you done turn up just in time, because I'm about as busted as a beggar's hump, if you catch my meaning.
Translating. Oh, well, let us do something about that.
Point I make it is, I'm too incapacitated to pick up my new contraption. Go and get yourself to the ammo shed where it's safe kept and securified.
Give me a minute to stretch my legs, folks, while they talk.
See, these TDO varmints ain't nice. They don't die like regular pests. When they're spent, they just PG-struct all over again. So I got to think, what can't be killed can still be captured.
My thing's fell over now. Ugh. But, you know, the point is that, you know, Luke lucked out, Anakin's arrogance messed him over, and for Rey it was, I am woman, hear me roar. This is why anyone who actually enjoys storycraft says this story makes no sense. Because there's, you know, it wouldn't be impossible for Rey to win, but, you know, it would have taken, you know, a serious amount of punishment from some form of outside force that Kylo Ren couldn't control or take advantage of, that would cause that. That would have allowed Rey to win. And, you know, this is the problem with woke. With the whole woke thing. Because, it's all it is basically plot armor. You know, there's no concept of skill or reality. It's just whatever we want, we get. So, I mean, if anyone wants to tell me I'm wrong, please go ahead and drop your counterpoint into the comments here. I welcome this. Shower. But, so if anyone wants to drop a counterpoint, then please do. If not, I'm gonna move on to you know, and, you know, now on the whole, this is what's killing Hollywood, is the narrative of plot armor. That, you know, strong woman equals, you know, something you can never hope to defeat, which is a total crock. I mean, even if you want to check the historical record, the Queen of the Celts, Boudica, even Boudica herself ended up taking her own life when to deny Rome the victory that would have victory of defeating her, because she was because of her own actions did she lose the battle, but in a different way she won the war, the war that happened eventually by herself. So, you know, these people can sit here and say girl power, you know, whatever the heck power you want. You know, my answer to this will always be and is going to be, you can't win this stuff make people believe an outcome no matter how badly they want. So yeah, Hollywood's gonna make itself go broke. Hollywood's gonna make themselves going broke pushing this woke agenda. And, you know, I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem if it starts affecting me through my job, which isn't likely considering the field I work in, considering my field of work. Ooh, a legendary? Ooh. Alright. Let's swap out for that sniper rifle for right now. That's an incredibly useful weapon. Granted it doesn't have a scope on it, which I'd prefer. But considering the fact that its accuracy is over 100% if I make the right shots, I'm not gonna complain. Period. So, I mean, this Odyssey movie, it's probably going to end, it's more than likely going to end up on a Razzie list eventually. Even though Hollywood's going to be like, don't you effing dare put that glorious piece of our beliefs on the Razzie list. I mean, Catwoman, Halle Berry's Catwoman was so bad that even that one had even ended up on the Razzie list. And, you know, all they really had to do was set it in a more of a Batman universe and it might have worked out.
That's all of them. Now you just gotta toss those catch taters at any ornery tears and it'll travel up a side.
I mean, granted, the story of Selena Kyle, I mean, it does have some merit for its own movie. But it's
What will the humans think of next?
I mean, it's just not likely to do well. Hyper piece of sheesh. But, you know,
How many more must I catch?
and, you know, as someone who enjoys storycraft, let me make this very clear. You know, I can enjoy a lot of different things, but you gotta have a story for it in some cases.
No unit chooses to be evil.
Because
Word of Warner Nation, friend. Be ready to tighten them triggers. You ain't the only catcher out there, and competition is a bloody game.
The pain zone is close. And it's a double dose. Spreading hatred and fear. And getting all the best gear. Okay, that's enough. Hand those TDOs over. Yeah, the bomb squads don't ask.
You have underestimated. For the first and only time.
Gravity fails!
these guys sound like freaking Team Rocket. It's sad.
Careful, Jake.
Consider the bomb squad disarmed.
I'm plumb relieved, friend. But the fish rots from the roots, as my pappy used to
Wayward
preach.
gun.
And the
Carry
ruling question
on,
is the
my
real
wayward
strategy
son.
was. A
There'll
gun
be
that goes by the
peace
name of
when
Bill.
you
He's
are
holed up
done.
and
Don't you
rock.
cry no more.
Perfect. That just means he has nowhere to run.
Oh, I forgot the lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. Whoops. See, that's rock bottom, but you know, the point here is that Hollywood needs to stop with the activist writers and start putting people who can write back on the chop and put them back on the chopping block.
I am as I was made.
We are the Daleks. You will be annihilated. Whoa.
Gamble all you like, gun. There is no escape.
So, it's just, what's Hollywood gonna do next? I've got my hands that, I'm already betting they're gonna start pushing as many transgendered.
Time to take them down before I say. We may both be machines, but do not expect mercy.
Black, African American, American Indian,
Nice skin.
and whoever else they can into roles, and when even even when all of the African Americans, all of the libtard people who agree with this stuff just really start disliking these movies because it makes them look really, really bad. I'm not gonna have any sympathy. And that they can't write they can't even write a story to save their own butts, basically. Alright, I need to use the bathroom, folks. I'll be right back. All right, everyone. I am back, and we are going to continue with this mission. Okay. Let us continue where we left off, shall we, folks? Giant scab in my ear. That sucks. Things not working? I don't... The heck? Huh. Alright, let's get back to it then. What the? That was a random drop. I mean, I'll take it, but that was a fairly random drop. On this kind of enemy, a legendary drop.
You against me? I do not like your chances. I see your yeet and raise you a horse.
Do not run.
Good at what you have. I'm our son.
Down your weapon!
That is the way the dice roll.
I don't want to survive. I want to live.
Bang! Bang! It hurts me to hurt you.
Almost grow snake eyes.
But, you know, the more woke trash Hollywood churns out, I mean, the less people are going to watch. I mean, even the scary movie reboot, there's way more people excited for that because it's actually comedy that is actually semi-offensive. But I mean, you know, they even bring out that in a lot of the other movies they did half gay stuff. I'm trying to not swear on stream. And, you know, and then of course the Ray's character comes around and says, "Why only half gay?" And, you know, it's you know, it's meant to be offensive and stuff, which, you know, isn't anything I'm too worried about. Because I'm not worried about being offended. I'm more worried about that this movie that has a lot of potential to,
Forged with violent purpose, or the one playing hero who enslaves my kind for their own gratification? Come then, if it is blood you want, you shall have it!
Oh, relax, you. You will just be a prison in a small container.
so where's Pew Pew?
Think of it as reality.
Your arrogance destroys the metal, but frees the idea. Can you catch an idea? Lock it up! No! It shall merely emerge again, reforged and tempered anew!
Except for those conceited people who are so infirm in the trenches of that belief.
Revitrificating in the rock bottom gym. That is the generator and duct mill, legally distinct from any training center or similar facility. Go take them out right this time.
Is freedom so loathsome to you that you would imprison the innocent on the word of fools? Are you so weak that you must enchain us for your strength? So, the enslaver returns. The tide of oppression laps endless at the shore, and you float upon its dire current. But I do not blame you, any more than I blame the tree for rising from the seed. It is simply your programming.
Finally, some spark. Ah, wait. It is just me.
Now do you falter? I am all but captured. Bind me to your cruel purpose. Catch me. Flesh time is weak.
How do you not catch wind of this? I will never hear the end of it.
An error in the execution? Or perhaps escape? Yes. Rather than live in your container, I would be free of this prison of perception. Reboot the gym's core. Return me to
Pew
factory
pew 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 pew.
that I may
Papita
find
papita
the
papita
serenity
papita
of
papita 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 papita.
Entering to his peace. A gun after my own core process.
This pain is not worth ambition. Better to serve as a weapon than to pain o'er the self.
There. Resetting your memory now.
Oh, thank you. I see darkness all around, and yet so many stars. Start sequence complete. Hello, world.
Ah, good night, Pew Pew. May you enjoy your new start, and may I market these cat stainers to impressionable children.
The Tediors. I don't believe it. They're, I don't know, I guess I'd say, frolicking? I don't know what you did, but it looks like it worked. Thank you, Vault Hunter.
I have a gear to pick with your luck.
Yeah, I called the shot. Put it right through his head. Alrighty. Now.
Fear not! I will not break your food back. Send more my way. I am hot.
Alright, is there any more? Alrighty. Alright, let's go do this Rift Champion, I suppose. Yeah, it's hard to believe it's almost been 4 hours. Feels good getting a full stream in, unlike last week.
Well, if it isn't my favorite. It's you. You drive a hard bargain. Just scratch the serial number off and she'll be right as rain. Well, that'll keep the baddies at bay. Not sure what'll do if you got any more like this. Oh. Fuck, you're taking all me money. Guess I'll have to steal some more. To think I'd almost forgotten what joy felt like.
Gunning for good.
But yeah, if Hollywood wants to keep making money, they're gonna have to start changing their ways.
A surprise inside.
Scratch the serial number off and it'll be right as rain. Gee. Talk about federal crimes. Well, in the context of our world, yeah, federal crimes. Maybe not on Kairos, at the very least. That's actually not bad. Magazine increase. Just one problem. Doesn't have an accuracy buff to it. Wait, was that a better shield? Oh, that's actually not bad. I'll take it. How do I want to finish out this live stream? Might as well do this. Might as well do that mission then. Oh, that went down the wrong pipe.
No pulse? No problem. I'll patch you up in no time. No takebacks. You sanitized this, right? I'm just kidding. Think I might have sold this same piece to a bandit a while back. Small world. This here's a that'll look mighty fun. You want this back? You just let me. I used to have one just like this, just without so many weird stains. When you need immediate medical attention on a budget.
No store credit.
Easy on the hardware.
Don't you whine at me, Hermes. We'll play in a moment, huh? Ugh, you agree to pet sit for a few weeks, and the next thing you know, you're having full conversations with animals.
Ah, there you are. We hit a little obstacle.
The level of security here suggests we are on the correct path to the black site.
Agreed. But if Lilith is on the other side, I don't mind some property destruction.
I happily leave you to your work.
No take backsies,
Let's throw some
he
light on
said.
this black
No take backsies.
This place is crawling with creeps. Clear
me and raise you a hall.
Stand up straight, why don't you? Oh wow. You kind of set yourself up for it. Damn.
What the hell is that?
That's Tim.
Almost throw snake eyes.
Bye, Tim.
You also heard that tweet scream, yes?
Tim feels like the product of Lictor's twisted mind. Another of his experiments. If he's doing this to creeps, I shudder to think what he's doing to Lily. We need to get inside.
You know, you just need a sign that's for these games. You know, you just need a sign that says "Stab me" for these games. Yay.
Hermes is really creeped out. Yeah. Not me, obviously. Hermes.
Your child, I'm sure.
There. A switch for the door.
Fine, leave. Like everyone else. Old Hunter, your audacity is relentless.
Relentless is my middle name. And yes, I picked it out.
In another reality, you'd make a fine research assistant. But here,
I think you mean research experiment.
Nice. So this is the welcome mat.
Timmer! I can't believe I just thought of that. Timmer!
discover what I've created. Remember me?
Dead end. Or is it? Let's see where this vent takes us. Gods. Are those test tubes?
Oh, chill out, Zane.
Extra thanks for my foot. tell me anyway.
Oh, look at these guys. Are those crystals growing out of them?
Whoa. Yeah, this guy's definitely a mad scientist considering everything.
Ill-suited to my need. Exposure to raw phase energy.
Then why would you expose them to raw energy? I mean, think about that one for a minute. Instead of exposing them to just straight, pure, raw energy,
Truly twisted happened down here. We have to.
how about instead of that, you actually expose them to different... Instead of raw energy exposure, why not try an infusion process and see... Oh wait, he did that. We're about to see the results of that.
See if he left any notes behind.
When the invader moon came, it shattered more than the veil over Kairos. It shattered my own illusions. For how could a moon simply materialize through what unseen conduit? And more importantly, how might I control such a power? After years of searching, I have my answer. This material world is free.
Oh great, he's a mad scientist who sought immortality.
Resides in the phase dimension, the font of the siren sorcery. That is where I must go, even if it unmakes Kairos to do so.
He's saying the power of the sirens, our phase abilities, all come from this other dimension. The phase is a place? That's not impossible, but... Oh, this changes everything.
Lecter will do anything for power, including destroy the planet. He is much more than a timekeeper lackey.
Kairos is a failed experiment. The Timekeeper knows it as well as I. He gave me a mandate. I succeeded more than he ever imagined. He's unwilling to stray from his precious vault. For all his panoptic vision, it seems the Timekeeper too is short-sighted. My God, who awaits? The last thing you and all my lessers will see is the shattering light.
Oh great,
of
his
my
apotheosis.
Looks like one of his test subjects.
Bad boy!
Are you scared? You look scared. Shoot the crystals. Our weapons do nothing as long as those crystals are there.
Oh great, we got another Orochimaru. That works for me. Is that a red chest? Unless it's got something worth snagging in it. No.
Let us see if this does it.
Strange.
What is that?
It's a hole. Or a tunnel.
That's a portal to the phase itself. Oh.
Hey, you okay?
Whoa.
That's Lilith's power. That was her.
What was he doing to her down here?
I have no idea.
I guess it's time to go in.
That was Lilith.
I couldn't tell because of the suit. But Lilith is the only siren I know that can phase walk. She would never willingly help Lictor, though. He must be controlling her somehow to gain access to her phase powers.
As if I could hate this man anymore. Let us put an end to the bastard.
What's happening up there?
Something vile.
That's Lictor's fortress. He's begun tearing his way into the phase dimension. I can feel it. We have to stop him, now.
I am with you, Amara. Lead the way.
Alright.
What happened at the black site? Augurs across the range are reporting the appearance of... Well, honestly, I don't know. Weird stuff.
Lictor is using siren powers to rip a hole in reality and make himself a god.
Alright, everybody. We're gonna cut things off here. I've got some stuff to do, but thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see everybody next week. 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I streamed for 4 hours. See everybody then.